Part 1. So, now that Superman is finally here and the new DC universe has officially begun from James Gunn, and after watching this movie, and I have a feeling that with the question of what happens next, and what can we see more of now that James Gunn has now built this new universe, it is now established, and with Superman that was the start of all that. Well, I'm going to give you my main points and my possible predictions for what we can see next, and the expansion of the brand new DCU universe, including for James Gunn's future projects in his DCU slate. And plus, there's a lot to be excited for Superman fans, and for where David Gordon Sweat's role as the Man of Steel himself could we see moving forward as well. And so, if you're new, then be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so much on any future videos. But now, let's get right into it. And now, to start things off, I really enjoyed Superman, especially after having watching it twice in theaters. And even the more I look back on it, the more I get attached to it and really liking it even more, because especially with the theme and tone for what we can relate to with this character, and with the way that David Gordon Sweat embodies the role as the Man of Steel himself, and the way that he embraces that hope for what he goes through in this movie, aside from going up against Lex Luthor, and just for how he's handling life. It's like, I think, like a young version of Superman that we are seeing here, and with the way that James Gunn told the story on screen with this character that doesn't need an origin story, he has already established. People already know who Superman is, and I just really like its bold, new take on the character with its storytelling, with its choices, and even with the character development for what role that they have in the film, especially with the world of Metropolis, the Daily Planet, and so much stuff. And even though I like the third act, even for how the movie ended, and it's filled not only with the James Gunn humor, but also with his creative writing and his choices. And now, especially for what can come next after this movie, well, we do know that not only do we have Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow on the way coming out in 2026, but before that we have Peacemaker Season 2 coming out on August 21st on Max. And now, as especially for what this new season of the show is going to be exploring, is Peacemaker's time with John Cena adapting this character after the first season, because especially with the season 1 that took place in the DCEU, but now with the season 2 now being taking place in the DCU, and the fact that this is coming out right after Superman, and for what we can tell from Peacemaker Season 2, it's definitely going to have a connection to the Superman movie, because we saw in trailer footage, we saw Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Maxwell Lord played by Sean Gunn, and the fact that we also saw him at the end of Superman, when Superman confronted Lex Luthor for his scheme to Metropolis and to the Daily Planet. And so I think that with that connection there, that's opening the door wide open. And also at the end of that trailer, that we saw not one but two versions of Peacemaker, one from the DCEU and our current version in the DCU. And so I think that for how James Gunn is going to be tackling that new season of Peacemaker, and for how it's going to open the door open for possibly a multiverse connection, and possibly for the DCU's Peacemaker to be meeting with our new Superman for the first time, and that can create some big element for a big crossover as we are seeing here. So, and on top of that, Peacemaker himself made a cameo in Superman in the news broadcast that Clark was watching as the world was exposed to who Superman really is, and why he came to Earth was to rule everything. Yeah, with the upcoming second season of Peacemaker, I think that there's going to be tons of more surprises and reveals for what James Gunn also wants to be showcasing to us. What is the glimpse of the brand new DC universe is going to look like, and with the future and beyond. So I'm thinking that with Peacemaker Season 2 is definitely going to be the start, but especially with Superman, that's only half of the game plan, but now that it has officially begun. But now with the second season of Peacemaker, I feel like that's going to be drawn into more of a connection. And even though we have Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and it's possibly going to make a reference to the Superman character himself, because in the final scene of the movie, we saw Superman in the fortress, and we get a cameo from Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, played by Millie Alcock, and that's going to set up the Supergirl movie coming out next year. And for what my expectations are for it, and not only are we going to explore Supergirl's backstory for how she came to be this hero, but we're also going to have Lobo, played by Jason Momoa, making his debut in the DCU. The way that James Gunn is going to adapt it, and plus with the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow from the source material that's going to be adapted into this movie. And even if you know anything about Superman and Supergirl, they are cousins and they come from the same heritage, that they are Kryptonian. And so with having that and there, it's possibly going to make that much sense if we get like possibly a hint, or possibly with Supergirl that's going to make some sort of reference from the events that happened in the Superman movie, for how David Cornsweet's Man of Steel had handled like Lex Luthor's plan to get rid of the city of Metropolis. So that's going to be something that's going to be huge to explore in the Supergirl movie, and with more storytelling left to be unfolded. And the next thing is that I think we had to have a Superman sequel on the way, because for how David Cornsweet's role as the Man of Steel is going to continue, and ever since that he was casted in the role, and I loved his take on the character. He embraces so much, and with the way that James Gunn wrote so much for that character alone. And for whether story comes next, we're going to be seeing our new Superman taking on many villains from the source material. And even if you know anything from the other iterations of Superman, for what they had to face, and even with David Cornsweet himself admitted that he is already under a contract for a Superman sequel that he cannot talk about. But whether that gets greenlit, and I hope that we get to see more stuff in the sequel. I would love to see more of our new Superman taking on this role, especially with his life of developing as the superhero that took on Metropolis and Lex Luthor, for what else that he has in store next. I have a feeling that we could possibly get spin-offs in the brand new universe, especially in the world of Superman. And for what kind of spin-offs that I would love to see out of our side supporting characters, and I love to see one for Jimmy Olsen, because especially I love how Skylar Descendo packed so much into him, and he is Clark Kent's friend at the Daily Planet, and with the way that he is not only that type of like a person that has his help alongside Clark Kent with Superman, but he's also a Bay magnet, as you can see all throughout this movie, and with the way that his character interacts with them, especially with his chemistry between him and Eve. And I would love to see that storyline unfold if these two ever get explored into a relationship, because especially with their scenes together, and they all act all like flirty with each other. So I would love to see that type of storyline to give Jimmy Olsen a story, like a story within this world, and even for how he became Clark Kent's friend at the Daily Planet. So that's gonna be something very fun that I would love to see happen, and I hope they do, because I am begging for it. Also, I would love to see a spin-off from Mr. Terrific, because even after my second viewing of the film, he is now my favorite character. What he had to go through, and for what we all felt within his characteristics, and especially if you know his abilities, that he has those T-sphere drones that were super helpful, especially to locate Superman to get him out of the pocket universe that Lex Luthor was holding him in. But especially for what he could do in like combat, and with his way of his knowledge with technology, I have a feeling that that's really going to benefit into exploring a real backstory on Mr. Terrific, the character himself. So that's going to be something that I would love to see happen. And also, what else that we have to take into account is what's next on James Gunn's DCU slate for what we have moving forward. Is of course we have Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow coming in 2026, and we have Swamp Thing, The Authority, and the Lantern series of Batman, Brave and the Bold, and I think we're going to see James Gunn's take on Batman right there, and we're gonna see a new version of Batman, especially with people that are depicting that Robert Pattinson's Batman should join the DCU. I don't think that's ever gonna happen, but I think we're gonna see a new Batman for the way that James Gunn wants to see his take on the character. Now, especially as we look at this whole thing as a whole, and that with Chapter 1, that is Gods and Monsters, and especially what Superman showed us is with the Man of Steel, that he took on the Hammer of Bravia and thing. That was a diversion by Lex Luthor, but like that's the thing that I'm sort of like, you know, predicting right here is the way that James Gunn centers this universe and to adapt those characters from the source material. So I'm thinking that it's like a very good idea to layer this structure for what he really wants to introduce next. Characters that we have read in comics that never had a chance to make their debut in the new DC universe. I think that's what James Gunn is going to be doing, especially for what him and Peter Safran are doing behind the scenes to make this whole thing happen, especially as these two guys took over DC and to make things happen, and especially with Superman, that is the start of that. And I think we can see a lot more down the line. So I think anything is possible now that the new DC universe is here. It is established from James Gunn, and I think we can look forward to a lot more down the line. And even though I think Lanterns is my anticipated DC project to see, the rest of the DC projects that Gunn has cooked up, I'm pretty sure that I'll be here and I'll be ready for it once it comes. And I guess with my final thoughts right here, I think there's so many more possibilities for what James Gunn can do, and now that people love Superman, it's got a fresh Rotten Tomatoes score, especially with box office wise, and now that we can look forward to more from his DC slate. And I think with Peacemaker Season 2 and Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, it's going to give us not only more answers, but hints and reveals for what this new DC universe has in store, and for what James Gunn can do, especially for what he knows about these characters, and for who knows what can show up as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited for, Superman fans out there, and I think we should all mark it on our calendars, and we should all be celebrating it as well. But that's gonna do it for this video. Just let me know in the comments down below, and what your thoughts on all this, and what would you like to see happen after Superman, especially if you want like spin-offs happen, especially if you think Peacemaker Season 2 is going to draw in a hint and major reveal and connection. But let me know it all in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to know more future videos, and also follow all my social medias all linked down below. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.